To kick things off, I'd like to go first to Dave Malone. Dave, you've been pretty vocal on behalf of the construction industry in respect of what the Northern Territory and Commonwealth governments are doing to stimulate the NT economy. As a qualified economist and former former head honcho in the public service, what do you say about the current state of the NT economy, and what advice would you give the NT government to improve the local economy?
That's a great question, Leon. If I had the answer to that, I'd probably be laying on a beach in the Bahamas rather than sitting up here responding to your question. When we look at the territory economy today, I think we're exactly what Leslie Fazy said earlier on. We're at that hyper-normal situation right now. You know, Albert Einstein once said that if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, well, you're a little bit crazy, and we're probably a little bit in that spot right now. When we look around at our economy, you know, we're in a situation where 12 months from now, there'll be less people in the territory than there is now. 12 months from now, the budget forecasts that our domestic economy will be smaller than it is now. It grows a little bit because of exports, but our domestic economy will be smaller. So they're not great numbers for all the business people that are sitting in this room. If you're thinking that, where is my market going to be over the next 12 months? Now, we have those cycles day in, day out. The economy always goes up and the economy always goes down. And some of all that up and down is actually self-correcting. So don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that this is anything different from what we've seen before. I suppose what I'm thinking, though, is that if we continue to do what we're doing right now, we're going to be in exactly this situation for a while to come. I don't think there is any one magical answer to it. I actually think one of the big problems of having major projects over a long period of time is that we've fallen into the trap of believing we're just one project away from an upturn. In actual fact, we're back to a time in the economy where you have to work hard every single day on every single thing. You can't predict what's the thing that's going to rescue you. You just have to work as hard as you possibly can. I don't think the answer lies with government either. We put enormous store in asking government to solve almost every single problem that our society has today. I actually think the future for the Territory sits in the hands of the people sitting in this room, the people running their places in the city, out at Winnelly, Berrima, down on Smith Street, Alice Springs. It's actually one of those times when the Territory business community needs to rise up and start talking about what's needed to make the economy tick. If you are the people who will invest, you are the people who will employ, you get those direct signals from the market every day about where we are. And so I don't necessarily think we should be looking to government to solve this particular problem. What we should be looking for is for business rising up and really putting pressure on, because I think at the end of the day, it's about doing hundreds and hundreds of things really well, rather than looking for one magic bullet. Now, for someone who comes from construction, that might surprise you, because we're always looking for the next project, because that's what keeps our industry ticking along. I always say at the forums that we have that if you don't have growth, you don't have a construction sector, you just have a maintenance sector. So growth is the number one issue for our industry more than anything else. The Territory government's invested a lot over the next 12 months. They're spending $1.45 billion on construction activity. They're doing what they can to support the economy, but they can only do so much. In the end, it's the private sector that will pull the Territory economy forward, and we really need new investment coming through, not just once or twice in one or two projects, but really broadening out and expanding our economy. I hold great faith, by the way. You might all be thinking, gee, David's a doomsdayer. What a great way to kick off this panel. But I have great faith in the Territory, and I've been around for a very long time, and I've seen these sorts of slowdowns before. Territorians have always pulled the economy out, and I have absolute faith that we're able to do that once again now. We are in a tough spot, but I suppose I just want to caution that it's really up to all of us to go as hard as we can and to push at every single possible opportunity that we can find. And we will come out of this, and we are still, we're 1% of Australia's population, but our economy is almost 2% of turnover. We're one of the largest exporting per head states in Australia, behind WA, I think. So we do fantastically well, but we've allowed ourselves to fall into hypernormal. And my view is we just have to really lift the energy level amongst all of us, and the pressure we place on our government too, for that matter. And we'll kick this through, but we shouldn't be just hoping for something to happen. I suppose that's my message today. We don't want something to just happen, we want to drive it.
Thank you, Dave. Mary, as a small business owner in the Northern Territory, what's your view on the NT economy, and what do you think we can do to make it better?
Again, Leon, a loaded question, thank you. Look, we all live here. We see what's going on. We see empty shop fronts, we see empty sheds, we see blood on the street right now. You know, we're fools to pretend that doesn't exist. I hear a lot of people talking doomsday conversation. I hear a lot of people talking about friends who have closed businesses after tens of years and come out empty-handed. It's concerning. But again, I would suggest that if we continue with the Band-Aid solutions, if we continue to do the same things again and again, we're going to end up with the same result. And as we, you know, as our people are leaving here, fair enough, we're talking about people not coming, but we're also speaking about attrition. And I think that we could continue on in this fashion, or we could look at some perhaps other wheels that have already been invented. You know, I think there are possibilities here with water, of course. I don't have to go into the details, but we have the largest asset in the country with our water resources here. You know, I know our farmers are feeling a little bit jaded because I believe Indonesian exports and mangoes have just been permitted into our country. Well, we could quite easily mow all those fields into the ground and turn it into legalized marijuana. And we don't even have to make that happen. We just need to start talking about it so there's something positive to talk about it. I'm sure that would support our tourism industry. I'm sure that would support our farmers.
Greg, do you...
Dave suggests Friday evening might be a little bit more interesting. But again, without reinventing the wheel, I know that our community is suffering from crime, petty crime that's costing those of us who choose to work and work bloody hard, I'm sure you agree, tens of thousands of dollars on a daily basis. I don't think it is a far stretch that our politicians could make it slightly less comfortable to be incarcerated. You know, sugar is a privilege. Television and devices, they're all privileges. We don't have to provide those. You know, the average working taxpayer doesn't have that provided for them. We work for them. So if criminals on the street are more comfortable incarcerated than they are on the street, that's a no-brainer. It's just a swipe of a pen to change that circumstance. We'll save ourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars.
What's your view on that, Greg?
Yeah, look, I'm probably a bit more positive. When you look at, I think, the headwinds that are blowing against the Territory, I think a lot of it is about the perceptions of the Northern Territory, particularly interstate. You know, I travel reasonably regularly. When you're interstate, what you hear about the Northern Territory is not a good story, and we've got to change that narrative. We need to be much more positive about the Northern Territory and tell it as it is. And I think there's some work the NT government's doing right now around master rebranding of the Northern Territory. I had a look at some of that research, and that research showed that people's perception of the Northern Territory is stuck in 1986. When they think of the Northern Territory, they think of Paul Hogan and Crocodile Dundee, and you think about that, and you think, wow, that's a long time ago now. I was a little boy back then, and you know, the perceptions of the Territory haven't changed. And I think a lot of people who come to the Northern Territory are genuinely surprised when they come here. What you read, what you hear, what you see about the Northern Territory from interstate perspective is not real. And so I think that's an important part of it's related to population and what's happening with population. The Northern Territory has always been a place where people come for opportunity, particularly work opportunities. But I think a lot of people are looking at those opportunities now and saying, well, is it the right opportunity? And so I think when you look at interstate migration in particular, we've had, I think it's something like 21 consecutive quarters where more people have left the Territory interstate than have come here. That's a trend we need to arrest. You know, they may only be small numbers. You know, I think the net interstate migration declines about 2,000 a year, but it's still an important number and a serious loss of people.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to get to migration in a minute, but Dave, I just want to get back to you on one thing that you said. You said if we keep doing the same things and expect a different result, then we're silly. What exactly are we doing that is the same, and what should we be doing that's different? I just want to drill down a little bit into that.
I was really hoping you wouldn't go there. That's why I made the Bahamas comment right at the start. There are so many different things. I think the government said that it would take a look at its own activities, for example, and look at how it could find efficiencies to free up some cash, because every time government frees up some cash from its own spending, it can put that into the Northern Territory in some shape or form. We could look at how we get, when people want to invest in this place, how do we make the Territory the best place in Australia, if not the world, to actually invest, to actually have an aspiration that says, if you've got money and you want to do something, this is the place that you should come to do it, for example. I agree with Greg. We've done nothing to shape people's perceptions of the Northern Territory other than at a tourism level for quite some time, and yet so many decisions that will affect our future are made by people interstate. So, I absolutely agree with Greg that we should be going as hard as we possibly can around the rest of Australia to demonstrate the opportunities that are here. That also puts some pressure on some federal politicians who tend to see the Territory at the moment a bit like we're the smelly cousins from the Badlands. They can kick us without any problems, and they won't step up for some of the responsibilities that they have as well. But again, I don't think there's a magic bullet. I actually think it's about changing the mindset that we have and being really urgent and ambitious about our future, and not just letting our future present itself to us.